If you'd asked me a year ago how life was going, I'd have probably told you, not bad. And I would have meant it. I had a decent job, a comfortable home, and a wife who, as far as I knew, still loved me. We weren't perfect, but who is? I didn't know I was sleeping beside a traitor. I didn't know I was shaking hands with a man who saw me as a joke. But I'd find out. Oh, I'd find out in spectacular fashion. It all started with a party. Not just any party, a company gala. Black ties, string quartets, overpriced wine. One of those events where everyone pretends to be richer and happier than they really are. I wore the same tux I'd gotten married in, still fit, more or less. Rachel, my wife, looked stunning. New dress, new perfume, new attitude I couldn't quite name. I should have known something was off. The late nights. The sudden interest in fitness. The weird little smile she'd started wearing, like she knew something I didn't. I brushed it off. That's what you do in marriage, ignore the small cracks and pray they don't become fault lines. The ballroom was packed. Glasses clinking, laughter echoing off marble columns. Then he came over. Greg Weston, my boss. CEO. The guy who signs my checks and once said I had leadership potential. He swaggered up to me, drink in hand, grinning like he'd just bought a yacht with someone else's money. "Ben," he said, raising his glass, "congrats, man." I blinked. For what? He leaned in close, his voice slick with vodka and arrogance. "You're gonna be a dad. I knocked up your wife." I stared at him. Actually stared. Like maybe I didn't hear that right. Like the words got scrambled somewhere between his lips and my ears. Then I looked at Rachel. She didn't deny it. Didn't laugh. Just smiled that smug little smile, the one that had started showing up a few months ago. And she said, calm as a storm before it breaks, "Yeah. And you won't even divorce me. No fault state, remember?" That was the moment something broke. But it wasn't me. Not the way they expected. See, betrayal doesn't always feel like a gunshot. Sometimes it's a slow, cold seep. Like water under the floorboards. You don't notice the damage until the whole house starts to tilt. I didn't yell. Didn't cry. Just nodded, once. And walked away. But I didn't leave. I went out to the valet stand. Not to go home. I had something in the glove box. Something I'd prepared weeks ago when my gut told me something was wrong and my head finally decided to listen. When I came back in, the music had shifted. Soft jazz, dim lights. Rachel was still near the bar, standing with Greg, sipping her drink like she hadn't just dropped a nuclear bomb on our marriage. They didn't see me until I was right in front of them. Rachel's face drained. Her hand went up slightly, like that could stop what was coming. "Ben, please, don't do this," she said. Her voice cracked. First time I'd heard that in a while. She didn't know what was in my hand, but she knew the look on my face. The look of a man with nothing left to lose, and a plan that didn't involve mercy. That was the moment I stopped being the nice guy, and started being the architect of my revenge. I stood there, right in the center of the ballroom, calm as a surgeon. In my hand, just a plain envelope. Nothing flashy. The kind you see in courtroom dramas marked confidential. I laid it on the bar next to Rachel, slid it her way, and said one word. "Read." She froze. Even the wine glass in her hand paused midair like time hiccuped. Greg leaned over, still riding the high of his vodka confidence and clueless ego. "What the hell is this, Ben?" he scoffed, trying to sound tough. I looked him square in the eye. "Your resignation letter." He laughed like I just told him a joke he didn't get. But Rachel, she opened the envelope. Slowly, like it might explode. Her eyes scanned the first page. And then it hit. Her face drained of color like someone pulled the plug. Jaw slack, lips parted, then shut, then parted again. A fish gasping on dry land. "What is this?" she whispered. "Proof," I said, "of the affair, of the misuse of company resources, of all the little games you two thought you were getting away with while I was paying the bills and washing your socks." Greg turned the color of a construction cone. "How did you?" "You really shouldn't let your side piece keep a shared iCloud with her husband," I said, cutting him off. "Rookie move." Gasps echoed around the room. Someone dropped a glass. The jazz band went silent. Even the bartender stopped mid-polish. Yeah, I brought receipts. Texts, emails, screenshots, hotel confirmations. A neat stack of sins timestamped, geolocated, undeniable. Rachel didn't know this version of me. The man who stared down risk and built a business with two bare hands and a relentless will. She thought I was still that flannel-wearing, safe guy who fixed leaky sinks and paid taxes early. She forgot that I also pay attention. I've already filed, I said, cool and measured. Dissolution, financial disclosures, the whole deal. Her hand reached out like she could rewind time. Ben, wait. I'm done waiting. Greg puffed up again. This is just a bluff. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. The ballroom's projector lit up behind me. It started with a slideshow of texts. Then photos. Hotel rooms. Rachel in lingerie. Greg shirtless and proud. Timestamped. Cross-checked with business trip records. Some of it even paid for with the company card, which, by the way, was still linked to my account. I didn't flinch. I stood there, the screen blazing behind me like a holy reckoning. Greg scrambled to shut it down. Too late. Consider this my resignation, I said. From this marriage. From playing nice. From being the guy you all thought would just swallow this. I placed my wedding ring on the bar, next to Rachel's untouched cocktail. Then I walked out. No screaming. No theatrics. Not even a slam door. Just me and the night air. Hands in my pockets. Heart steady. They thought I was reacting. What they didn't know was I'd been preparing for months. You know that old saying, if you're gonna dig a grave, dig two? Well, I didn't dig graves. I drew blueprints. See, they thought what I pulled at the gala was spur of the moment, a dramatic husband having a breakdown. But the truth is, I'd started laying the groundwork for that night 6 months earlier. It all began with Rachel changing her phone password. Then her laptop. At first, I chalked it up to privacy. Then she opened a second bank account. That's when I stopped playing house. I started making copies, emails, receipts, shared cloud backups. I installed a tracking app on a tablet she forgot to log out of. I watched. I listened. And I waited. Not because I was weak, but because timing matters. She thought I was asleep at the wheel. She didn't know I'd already hired an attorney, a sharp one. Someone who specialized in asset protection and reputational shielding. We pre-filed the divorce weeks before the gala. My prenup? Airtight. She signed it during a boozy weekend getaway thinking it was just in case. Didn't realize there was a clause that nullified all spousal support in the event of infidelity. Guess what? Clause activated. And the house? Still in my name. She thought it was ours. It was a flip I'd done back when the market was hot. Just never updated the deed. Call it laziness. Or fate. The best part? Rachel's affair wasn't just sleazy, it was a violation of company policy. Greg was her direct supervisor. I knew that little detail would matter. So the Monday after the gala, I sent an anonymous tip to HR with the full documentation package attached, including the corporate card statements. Within 48 hours, Greg was put under internal review. Rachel, too. She showed up at our house 2 days later, pounding on the door like the FBI. I opened it a crack, just enough to see her mascara already running. You don't live here anymore, I said. Ben, please, she sniffed. Greg's been suspended. You don't know what this is doing to me. I almost laughed. Do you? Seems fair. You gave him a baby. I gave him a formal investigation. She flinched. Good. I made a mistake, she whispered. I leaned against the frame, arms crossed. Which part? The cheating, the smug reveal, or assuming I'd just roll over and take it? You're acting like I meant to hurt you, she said, voice soft and shaky. I looked her dead in the eyes. You didn't make a mistake, Rachel. You made a plan. A baby announcement with your boss in one hand, and a legal ambush in the other. You just didn't expect me to outplan you. There's a certain social circle in our town, brunches, fundraisers, gossip masquerading as charity. Rachel lived for that world. She curated her Instagram like a museum exhibit and practiced networking like it was an Olympic sport. So I made sure the truth leaked there first. I didn't embellish. Didn't even need to. Just release the raw data. One day she was getting "Congrats, Mama" comments. The next, her profile went private. Greg's page vanished. HR issued one of those vague leadership restructuring memos. All of it exactly as when I finally came back to town after some much-needed off-grid time in Montana, fishing, bourbon, and the kind of silence that doesn't ask questions. I figured the worst was behind me. I was wrong. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. About 5 minutes later, I got a text. "My name is Mara. I think we should talk. Your ex and mine have more in common than we thought." I remember the name. Mara Weston. Greg's wife. Well, technically. We met at a quiet little cafe across town. She wore a dark blazer like it was armor and carried a folder so thick it could stop a bullet. Her expression? Cold. Controlled. Like someone who'd already cried all her tears and decided tears were a waste of time. "You're not the only one cleaning up their mess," she said without preamble. "Greg wasn't just sleeping with your wife. Rachel's just the latest." She opened the folder. Inside, hotel bills, text threads, a color-coded calendar of Greg's double life. There were dates when he was supposedly out of town for work, matched perfectly with charges to spas, restaurants, and boutique hotels. Mara didn't say a word. She just let me look. "You tracked all this?" I asked. "For over a year," she said. "But I didn't have proof until he got sloppy. Rachel made him sloppy. I didn't know whether to thank her or feel sorry for her. Maybe both." "I don't know what you're planning next," she continued, "but if you want leverage, this might help. You're rebuilding. I'm protecting my kids. This helps us both." She slid the folder to me. That was the first time I realized I wasn't in this alone. Rachel and Greg hadn't just blown up my life. They'd made enemies elsewhere, smarter ones, angrier ones, with better documentation. Later that week, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years. Tara Kelly, high school friend. She used to be the girl who made sarcasm look like an art form. We'd lost touch, like most people do. Turns out she now ran her own architecture firm. We were both bidding on the same development project. "Ben Garrison," she said with a smirk, "didn't peg you for the real estate comeback tour." "Got divorced," I said. "Now I build things that don't cheat on me." She laughed. "So that explains the lack of soul-crushing tension lines around your eyes." We got coffee, talked shop, swapped divorce war stories. Hers was slower, no infidelity, just years of drifting apart. She didn't ask for details about Rachel and Greg, and I didn't offer them. She just got it. "You know," she said, stirring her espresso, "people talk about starting over like it's this sad thing. Like it's proof you failed. It's not," I said. "It's like gutting a house to the studs. Clears out the rot." "Exactly." She handed me her card. "Let me know if you ever want help designing something new." She wasn't talking about blueprints. But I wasn't in a rush. Not anymore. I'd hoped. You'd think after the public shaming, the HR investigation, and the nuclear fallout at that gala, Rachel might have tried to lay low. But nope, old habits die hard. She tried calling, tried texting, even sent a handwritten letter, like we were starring in some tragic romance novel. I didn't reply. I already had what I wanted: distance, silence, and legal momentum. The court filings were moving fast. Her lawyer finally crawled out of whatever rock she'd been hiding under and called mine to discuss amicable resolution. Translation: Rachel knew she'd lost. No house, no spousal support, no moral high ground. Then came the cherry on top. A quiet little email from her company's HR department confirmed it. Greg had been officially let go. Leadership restructuring, the memo said. Yeah, right? Meanwhile, Rachel was reassigned. Basically corporate limbo. No meetings. No travel. No authority. I didn't lift a finger. The truth had done all the work for me. I heard from her sister around that time. We'd never been close, but she'd always seemed grounded, the sane one in the family. She called while I was chopping firewood out by the cabin. "Ben, I wanted to say I'm sorry. You didn't deserve any of this." Her voice was soft, tired. "She's living with our parents now. Mom stopped hosting her bridge club since everything came out. And Dad, well, he hasn't said a word about it. He used to idolize Greg. I just nodded, even though she couldn't see it. Rachel always chased the next shiny thing, her sister said. We all saw it. We just thought she'd grow out of it. She didn't. The truth had a funny way of peeling people open. I thought I was done with it all. Then, one afternoon, I stopped by a small grocery store in town. Hadn't planned to run into her. Definitely hadn't planned to be holding a bag of flour and a 12-pack of toilet paper when I did. She froze. I could tell she'd been crying, or hadn't slept, or both. Hey, she said quietly. You look different. Yeah, sleeping helps. She gave a weak smile. I heard the settlement's almost done. Few signatures and it's official, I said, setting the flour in my basket. She shifted as if something heavy was pressing down on her shoulders. I just wanted to say thank you for not dragging it out. I looked at her, really looked. This wasn't the woman who'd smirked at me at that gala. Wasn't the woman who'd used a pregnancy to announce her betrayal. This was someone worn out, defeated, smaller somehow. I didn't drag it out, I said. There just wasn't anything left worth dragging. She swallowed hard. Then, almost as an afterthought, she whispered. It was real. You know, us. At least at first. I didn't respond. Some things don't need answers. Just acknowledgement. I walked past her and kept shopping. Never looked back. Didn't need to. It was a crisp morning, the kind where your breath hangs in the air like it's waiting to say something. I was back in the swing of things, flipping a property just outside town, drinking black coffee from a chipped mug, and not thinking about Rachel for the first time in months. Then the phone rang. Caller ID, Mara Weston. I hadn't spoken to Greg's soon-to-be ex-wife since she handed me the folder of his sins in a cafe and walked out like a hitman who just finished the job. Hey, Ben, she said, calm and direct. You free to meet? I agreed before I even knew why. Maybe curiosity. Maybe closure. We met at the same cafe as last time, her choice. She was already there, sipping tea like a woman who'd finally slept through the night. I have something for you, she said, sliding a new folder across the table. Inside, more documents, financial statements, shell accounts, even internal emails Greg thought he'd deleted. I raised an eyebrow. What's this? Insurance, she said. He's trying to claim wrongful termination. Thought you'd appreciate some backup. I stared at the contents, flipping slowly through a paper trail that Greg himself had built, like a spider weaving its own noose. Why are you helping me again? I asked. She gave a half shrug. Because I know what it feels like to be turned into someone's stepping stone. You've got a future to build. I've got kids to protect. This helps us both. We didn't talk about emotions. Didn't swap sob stories. It was more quiet respect. Like two survivors sitting on opposite ends of the same shipwreck. Later that week, I met a contractor at a new property, a rehab job with good bones and terrible wallpaper. After the walkthrough, I headed to a coffee shop nearby to sketch out ideas. And that's when Tara walked in. We'd kept in touch since reconnecting, grabbing coffee, trading notes on projects. Nothing romantic, just real talk between two people who'd seen enough BS to last a lifetime. But that day, something felt different. She sat across from me, took one look at the renovation sketches and said, "You're building a home, not just a house." I smiled. Guess so. You thinking of staying in town for good? Starting to feel like home again, I said. Turns out fresh air and doing things with your hands clears your head. She looked at me, head tilted. You look lighter. Like you finally put something down you've been carrying for too long. She wasn't wrong. Later that evening, back at my place, I found myself looking out over the fields behind the house. The grass had that early spring gold to it. The barn still needed a new roof. But it was mine. All of it. I picked up the phone and called Mara. Yeah, she answered. Just wanted to say thanks. For the insurance policy. Use it if you need it, she said. I might not, I told her. But it's good to know I'm not crazy. There was a long pause. You're not, she said. They just made you feel that way. I hung up and stood there for a while, listening to nothing. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like enough. There's a quiet that comes after you've burned down the life you thought you'd live. Not the silence of regret, that's different. No, this one feels like standing on the porch after a long storm. Things are broken, sure, but the air's clean. You can breathe again. That was me. Months after the gala, after the fallout, after the whole mess had gone public and radioactive, I was still standing. No scars I couldn't live with. The new house was halfway done. I'd picked the land carefully, high enough to catch the sun in the mornings, far enough from town to hear the wind, but not the gossip. I poured the foundation with a crew that didn't ask questions and worked like hell. Every board, every nail, every brick felt like taking back a piece of myself. Then, Tara called. "I'm bringing coffee and blueprints," she said. "You better have a place to sit." She did, both. I spread the plans out on the old dining table I was refinishing, and we talked layouts, lighting, insulation. Somewhere between vaulted ceiling and French doors, she leaned back and said, "You know you're allowed to be happy now, right?" I laughed, still getting used to the idea. She didn't push. That's one of the things I liked about her. She didn't need to fill the silence. A few days later, I got a letter from my lawyer. The divorce was finalized. Clean. Signed. No appeals. No fights. A weight lifted I hadn't realized I was still carrying. Rachel didn't call. Didn't show up. I heard from someone she was back living with her parents, picking up part-time consulting gigs that no one was excited about. Apparently, even the brunch crowd had gone quiet. Turns out, betrayal doesn't play well in small-town circles once the shine wears off. Meanwhile, I was hosting barbecues. Little ones. Close friends. A couple of guys from the crew. Tara came by sometimes, always with a six-pack and ideas for the kitchen backsplash. One afternoon, I got a text from Mara. "Greg settled. Full confession. No NDA. You're clear." I stared at that message for a long time. It meant I was free, not just legally, but reputation-wise. No more whispers. No more questions. Just facts, on record. I went outside and watched the sunset from the porch of my still half-finished house. It was quiet. It was mine. And it was enough. That night, Tara and I sat on that same porch with 2 glasses of bourbon and an old speaker playing Springsteen. She leaned against me and said, "You ever think this version of your life was possible?" "Not until I burned the last one down." She smiled. "You rebuilt. Better." "No," I said. "Smarter." She reached for my hand. No rush. No pressure. Just presence. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was already wearing both. Sometimes, you don't just get revenge. You get redemption. And if you're lucky, you get peace. And maybe a front porch worth sitting on.